Well, that was a dramatic day at the Donna Adelson trial. Donna prevaricating for a long time. Was she going to take the stand, or was she not going to take the stand and affirm her right to silence? In the end, she decided not to speak up, and the defence rest its case. What do you think the verdict's going to be? Let me know in the comments. Now, before that, we saw some evidence from two family law experts who dealt with the Adelson divorce. And man, it sounded like they were just going to talk about the ins and outs of the divorce, but these guys seemed on a mission to darken the name of the murder victim in this trial, Dan Markel. I'll point out how their words showed that. And if you wanted something else unexpected, we had this.
But she invited me to a party. It was called Wendi Gets Her Groove Back, and I had several friends I knew of Wendy's that were there as well, and it was just sort of a Wendy's in a good place, come celebrate my new life.
Wendi Gets Her Groove Back party. Did she really call it that? I've looked at the words and I've got the answer in this breakdown. This is a quick look at day 8 of the Donna Adelson trial. These daily episodes focus on the words said in court and nothing else. So no legal drama, no courtroom issues, just the words said in evidence and the words on the stand and what those words reveal. Now, we've been doing daily updates. Today looks like the last day of full-on evidence, but we did hear Donna talk just for a little bit this evening when she was talking, just for a little bit. However, I'm going to delve into that and just see if I can get anything from those short number of words that she said. So keep an eye out because there could be a daily update tomorrow. So subscribe to the channel to make sure that you get that. And also, I'll do a deeper dive into the testimony from the second week of the Donna Adelson trial as well at the weekend. So if you want to get that, subscribe as well. And if there is any testimony from across the whole trial where you want me to look into the words that people said, then do let me know in the comments. Now, some of your comments from day 7, and this was the text that I looked at with Donna talking to Wendi and saying, now you're not guilty. And I wanted to know what that meant. Seth suggested she's saying, now you are not guilty because Charlie is taking the fall for Wendi. Charlie is the one who protected her. Could be interpreted as not talking and going to prison for her. I like your thinking there, Seth. Phil here says, now you are not guilty, but in the future your guilt may come out. So he's gone with the word now, meaning something there. Now you are not guilty, but in the future. Phil, thank you very much for your comment. We have Paul saying the text said, now you are not guilty because Donna is saying Charlie went down for Wendi, just like he has protected her for years. So now that the verdict is out, Wendi looks innocent. Charlie's verdict is a type of protection for Wendi, at least in public opinion. So thank you for all the comments on that part. I also asked, why did Donna text your lawyer? Was that a typo, or was she just having a go at the number of lawyers that Wendi had? And I think this one sums up quite nicely what I think has happened, which is, Jack, I think the text from Donna to Wendi, she may have meant new lawyer, the one who told her not to speak to the family. I think that's perfectly acceptable. I did think it may well be a typo, but a typo for new lawyer instead of lawyer. So on to the divorce attorneys, people who have taken a lot of money from the Adelsons over the years, and two divorce attorneys got up and spoke today about the discussions, the divorce, the process between Wendi Adelson and Dan Markel. And I'm going to break down some of the things they said because it felt to me like they were on a mission, and that mission was very Donna-friendly. Here's the first thing I'm going to look at. Have a listen to this.
And in that motion, almost all of the related violations were not violations at all. There were no court orders requiring her to do what he wanted her to do. So he wanted a certain number of video calls, and she didn't give him enough video calls. Well, video calls weren't required. He asked for a certain number of phone calls, and a number of phone calls wasn't required. He was asking for, there was some right of first refusal. He didn't like that when Wendy's parents would come to town, that she would maybe go to dinner with friends and let them spend time with the kids. Or she would let them stay home from school so her parents could spend time with them. And they were little babies. And he didn't like that because he wanted to be able to go to the child care during her parenting time so he could see them every day. And I think the child care person had asked him probably not to do that, but he wanted to do that. And he wanted her to go to like a therapist and follow the therapist's advice on basically doing what he wanted her to do. So it was a lot of noise trying to enforce something that wasn't a provision to enforce. There was no underlying court order to enforce.
I didn't like that bit of testimony because it felt very much like Operation Trash Dan, make him sound unreasonable. And I think that was maybe to frame some of Donna, who'd be the most important person here because they're appearing as witnesses for Donna, to make her appear as reasonable in the face of all this provocation from Dan Markel. But did she believe what she was saying when she was telling us all these list of issues that were there? I'm not entirely sure. Let's look at a couple of them. The first one was when she said, I think the childcare person had asked him probably not to do that. I think, just think, very vague word, I think, so that's not knowing for certain, the childcare person had probably, so what, probably, just guessing at it, probably asked him probably not to do that. You're in court, you should be testifying to facts and not using all these vague things about, I think the childcare person had asked him probably not to do that. She's certainly not saying it with any certainty. So why did she feel the need to say it? Is this just to add another layer into how unreasonable Dan Markel was? And then there's another one. She says that Dan wanted Wendi to follow the therapist's advice on basically doing whatever he wanted her to do. Follow the therapist's advice on basically. When we use that word basically, we're using it to boil down things and give a gist of what you feel was going on there. So there was a lot more to that. Definitely a lot more to that, which this, and it's Linda Bailey, she's just taken down to basically follow the therapist's advice on basically whatever he wanted her to do. So while she may have given a big list of all these things that Dan was being unreasonable about, an emotion and that she didn't expect anyone to take seriously, when it comes to listing them, she shows that she's certainly got some doubt about actually what she's talking about. I think the childcare person had asked him to probably not do that and follow the therapist's advice on basically doing whatever he wanted her to do. The worst possible impression that she can put on that. She says some more here.
Now, with respect to the complaint about my client allegedly saying that she hated Dan Markel or she called him stupid, was that allegation a feature of his motion?
No, it was buried, like I said, 8 points down, 8, 10, 12 pages down.
Just a few paragraphs of his motion?
Yeah, 3 paragraphs.
So have you any clearer on what was going on there? Was that allegation a feature of this motion is the question that was asked. And she says no straight away. Yeah, so that's an answer there, no. But then she tells us where it did feature in the motion. It was buried, like I said, 8 points down, 8, 10, 12 pages down. Where was it? And why, when you were asked, was the allegation a feature of this motion, why did you say no and then tell us exactly where it was in the motion? It was buried, like I said, 8 points down, 8, 10, 12 pages down. Was it 8 points down? 12 pages down? Why are you not certain? Why, again, are you putting the worst possible spin for Dan Markel in this answer? She does some more here. Let's have a listen to more of what she has to say.
Did you find anything unusual about my client, Donna Adelson's involvement in her daughter's divorce?
No. We have parental involvement, as Ms. Adamson said, often. Sometimes it's employer involvement. Maybe they're very attached to their employer and they want to nurture them. Or we'll get siblings who are lawyers involved. So family involvement, and especially moms, I see a lot.
A lot of mothers?
A lot of mothers. They're worried about their babies no matter how old they are.
Did you notice what went on there? The question was about Donna. Did you find Donna's involvement in Wendi's divorce unusual? And she gives quite a long answer there. It starts with no, so that's an indication she didn't find it unusual. And then she talks about, in order, parents. Well, a mother would be a parent, but it's wider. Oh, by the way, she says we, so she's not talking from her own personal experience. She's talking from a wider experience than that. We get parental involvement. Employers involved in divorce. I've never heard of that before, but it's seemingly what comes after parents. Then she mentions siblings. And then she goes on to talk about mothers. And the question was, did you find Donna's involvement unusual, not normal? And she says no. Then she talks about all the people that do get involved in divorces, finishing with mothers, and she's very upbeat on mothers take part in divorces, quite a lot. They care about their babies. Did you notice what is missing from her answer? Nothing at all about Donna. She's been asked about Donna's involvement, and was it usual, was it unusual? And she says what normally happens, how all these people get involved, parents, employers, siblings, mothers get involved. She doesn't talk about Donna's involvement and how it related to her normal experience of divorces where mothers are involved at all. She took Donna completely out of the question. She talked about what usually happened, but she didn't say how Donna related to that. I've got one more thing from her here. I want you to have a listen to what it is she says here and see if you can spot her using a very similar tactic.
Did you see my client's use of the nickname Gibbers to refer to Mr. Markel?
I did.
Did you find that especially provocative?
No. I mean, gibbers means someone who speaks gibberish. And if you look at Mr. Markel's motions and memorandums and responses he filed in this case, it was somewhat applicable. He was very verbose. If you looked at his writings as a complete layperson, they may at first glance seem somewhat intimidating, but when you broke them down paragraph by paragraph, they were inconsistent. They didn't make sense. They referred to, in multiple situations, he was seeking enforcement of things that were not court ordered, even afterwards in the February 2014 timeframe. So he was very wordy. He would file a 16-page response, and then he'd file a 16-page memorandum that said the same thing, and then he'd file a motion related to that said the same thing. So he was, a lot of his, the things that he filed, papers that he filed, which were signed by his lawyer, but they were consistent throughout all the lawyers, so it appeared that he was drafting them, were very, very wordy and full of hyperbole.
So she was asked about the use of the name Gibbers to refer to Dan Markel. Now, she says Gibbers means talks a lot, and that is, well, it's not true, frankly. The name Gibbers has been given to him for a very different reason, as confirmed by Wendi in court and testimony. But she was asked, did you find the use of that name, did you find that especially provocative? What was her answer to that question? You heard her. Well, she did say no twice, and then she went on to talk about how Dan Markel talked a lot. And not just talked a lot, could come across as intimidating at first, repeated himself over and over and over again, asked for things that he was not allowed to ask for. So she took that question, and instead of saying, no, I didn't find it provocative, she moved it off onto an off-ramp. She took a diversion, and she went to talk about basically framing Dan again as an infuriating person with which to deal with, because in this case, he was so verbose, he was very wordy. She used all of that as a diversion. So she took the question, did you find the use of gibbers especially provocative, and she used that as a springboard to go onto one of her hobby horses again about how infuriating Dan Markel may be. In other words, if you hear of Donna or Wendi using some language to describe Dan Markel which is not particularly pleasant, it was because Dan wasn't a nice person. Nothing to do with Wendi or Donna's characters, it was all to do with the deceased Dan Markel's character. And that, I think, was the main thrust of what it was that she wanted to get across when she was giving her evidence. Now, here's another thing that turned up today, and it was Wendi gets her groove back party. That was what was unveiled in court today. But did Wendi really call her party Wendi gets her groove back? Let's listen to how the first attorney that we heard from, Kristen Adamson, let's listen to how she discussed it today to see, was the party really called that? Have a listen.
Shortly after the divorce was final, did Wendi invite you to a get her groove back party?
I don't remember when the party was, whether it was a month or 2 or 3, but she did invite me to a party in her new, I think it was an apartment or townhouse. I don't remember what it was exactly, but she invited me to a party. It was called Wendi Gets Her Groove Back, and I had several friends I knew of Wendy's that were there as well, and it was just sort of a Wendy's in a good place, come celebrate my new life party. Yeah, in Tallahassee.
So there's the answer about the party. Did you notice all the doubt that was going on there? Because we had doubt about the date. I don't remember what the date was. Doubt about the location. Yeah, it was in Tallahassee, but was it in a townhouse? Was it in an apartment? She can't remember any of that. There was doubt as to why, because she said it was sort of celebration of getting her life back. So just doubt about why it was a sort of celebration. But very, very directly, with no deception detected in her words at all, did Kristen say it was called Wendi Gets Her Groove Back. So was the party called that? Did Wendi call the party Wendi Gets Her Groove Back? Yes, she did. Do let me know in the comments if you've anything else you noticed from the trial testimony, or if there's any parts that you would like me to break down when we do the deeper dive. Don't forget, do subscribe to the channel so that you get the daily updates as and when they happen, and also the big weekly update where we take a big, thick look at someone or many people testifying to see what their words really reveal. If you go to neveratruerword.com, you'll find a whole load more on the Adelsons there, breaking down past trials, interrogations. There's a whole lot more on the Adelsons, and also all the other daily updates from the trial as well. That's at neveratruerword.com. And we'll see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word.